evening, Trinidad. Welcome to another edition of Scoreboard here on ACT, and it's always a pleasure every Tuesday evening between the hours of 8 to 9 where we talk sports. And again, before I get into my discussion for tonight, let me first of all say a big shout out to all the viewers of this program and all the supporters who have been there with us from day one. We thank you very much for being part of this show. Tonight we're going to be talking sport in general, not really sport on the field, but what can be done to safeguard, safeguard ourselves in the line of sport. And joining me tonight is Mr. Mark Mungal. Mark is the director and co-founder of the Caribbean Sports and Development Agency, and also a director of Safe Sports International with over 20 years or more experience. And you have been doing some seminars in Caribbean countries for a while. I guess that is what I got from the little bio you sent me. Mark, it's a pleasure and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I think the first time we communicated was when you used to conduct those sporting camps down
in Quinam.
In Quinam, where early when used to come down there with Heidi and Harper.
Right, okay.
To talk to you. So much has happened over the years. You're now the author of, is this your first book?
Actually, no, that's my third publication.
Third publication. And tonight's show is going to be a two-part where we're going to be discussing the first part, developing youth leadership through sport, right? And let me hand it over to you one time. Developing youth leadership through sports. What does this book do for someone looking at it from the outside?
George, first of all, thanks for having me, and pleasant good evening to all your viewers as well. So, yeah, the book this is around addressing this issue of youth and leadership. I think it's a gap in the literature in general. I mean, we have lots of literature on leadership. We have lots of literature on youth engagement, but not a lot on youth and leadership. And particularly how we can use this powerful medium, this powerful environment that is sport, to facilitate and enhance the development of leadership capacities among young people. And so the book is written in a very user-friendly narrative, targeting coaches and physical education teachers and volunteers who work with young people in this, primarily in the sports sector. A lot of the information could easily be transferred to other sectors as well. So even though it's focused on the sports sector, it's not difficult for us to transfer the information to the music and arts and drama and even the scout movement or any other youth engagement context, right? Of course, but it focuses primarily on sport. And it does that because sport is one of those really powerful environments. Sport is an authentic environment. When we say we play in sport, we're not role playing. So we actively engage in a very authentic way. If you and I decide to play a game of basketball, one-on-one basketball, we're not going to be just role playing. We're actually going to be dribbling and shooting and trying to get the ball. And in fact, we'll become very competitive because both you and I are human beings, and by nature we are competitive, and we'll try to win. And we, so because of that, what happens when we start to engage in that sport experience, we drop our guard, we become vulnerable, and it is one of these settings where you're likely to do things that you wouldn't do in another setting, that we will speak to each other in a different way, regardless of who you are, even though you are a VIP in your field, and I am just a little young boy on the side. We will all of a sudden be on level terms in the way we communicate. And
because the sport has taken over.
Correct. And we become emotional too. And I thought that emotion is strange, because even if it's just you and I in a simple game of half-court basketball, one-on-one, if I shoot a beautiful shot from outside the arc, I will feel a sense of satisfaction that will be real. And on the other hand, if I miss, especially if I'm missing all the time, I'll become frustrated. And if you're doing something that I find unfair, like you're elbowing me, which you would probably be inclined to do when you realize that I'm outplaying you, you start to elbow me like you and I will potentially get into a squabble.
No, well, I was just about to mention that because I've seen friends go to play sport and they end up close to blows, you know.
Close?
Well, quite likely, you know.
Are you telling me? I mean,
Yes,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
those are friends that
Absolutely.
sweating and playing the sport every single day, you know.
And why is that, you think? That's because it's such an authentic environment, and the emotions of us engaged in that environment are real emotions that, as I say, make us very vulnerable. And whereas you and I would not ordinarily get into a fight, we could get at each other if we're playing basketball because we're so competitive and we both want to win. And it's one of the realities of that sport context that makes it so authentic. So when we put young people into that context, and so we allow them to engage in that context, we're not role-playing, we're not setting up a false environment. It's an authentic environment, which makes it powerful.
Yeah.
The challenge with it, of course, is power could be good, bad, or ugly. So we could easily in that environment generate negative outcomes as well as the positive outcomes, and then some outcomes that we don't even like to talk about, but we'll talk about later this evening. That's the child protection, the child abuse and stuff. That's the ugly side. But yeah, so you could imagine that if we just talk about creating opportunities for sport and providing opportunities for young people to play, whether it's football, basketball, netball, swimming, whatever it is, that doesn't necessarily mean that they benefited in a positive way.
Yeah.
The experience will always be powerful, but it could lead to negative things, and we've seen negative power, what it can do, and all of the things associated with gangs, for example. There's power. There's power within the gang. The leadership of that gang is very powerful.
Yeah.
But what is the power being used for? Negative activities, right? Harmful activities. And so what the book suggests, and it's based on a model that we developed, and I'm saying we, that the Caribbean Sport and Development Agency, but also with input from other experiences that we would have read about and that we would have played around with ourselves. But we came up with this model eventually that says, okay, if we harness this environment, if we control it, even manipulate it, because we want to make sure that those who are participating in it get a positive experience without taking away the authenticity of it.
Yeah.
So we allow them to play basketball, football, cricket, volleyball, whatever it is. And we allow them to have challenges, but we use those challenges now to get them to reflect and to think about what would be the best things for us to do in those scenarios. And that helps us to ensure that the experience leads to those positive outcomes, and including improving their own personal and social responsibility. So you and I playing, and the coach says, okay, stop. What happened there? And I say, well, coach, man elbowing me. So, and what did you do? I say, well, I push him down because I do him. So he said, well, and what happened after that? Well, I get red carded. I get ejected from the game. So then the coach then says, so what would be a better response for you? What's another way you could do that? And then have a dialogue. Why you're elbowing him? What else you should do? What would be a more strategic thing for you in the context of sport that you could do? Well, better screening or whatever it is, you know? So if we don't have that dialogue, then we don't have thinking, then we just acting on emotions, you know? So the context of developing leadership in sport and just using sport as a tool for development in general requires that we manipulate that environment and we understand it, and that the coach or the PE teacher or whoever is responsible facilitates an experience that allows the young people not only to benefit from a quality sport experience in terms of technique and all of that, and tactics and all of that, but also that they benefit from a positive life experience, that they understand in this setting, this is real, and we could use it for negative things, including violence and substance abuse and cheating and discrimination, or we could use it for something positive, like team building and leadership and learning how to communicate well and learning to be creative and critical and tolerant and how to address conflicts, etc. So that's the role of the coach. And coaches do a lot of that on their own, without thinking about it.
You know, not cutting about it, you said something very interesting there. You know, sometimes we see coaches, we coach teams to win games.
Yes.
And you talk about the man elbowing me and I elbow him back and I get a red card. But we don't ever see or hear where coaches, outside of your coaching, you will tell the individual, this is what you do if the individual gives you a bad tackle or something like that. So is it this book is beneficial to coaches, so they can, outside of the coaching of the game itself, they can then coach the individuals to handle the situations that they may encounter during a appointed game?
Well, two things. One is that, first of all, there are many coaches who are concerned about those types of scenarios and who will provide guidance.
Okay.
There are many.
Okay.
Sadly, not enough. And to a large extent, those who are involved in the higher level of competition, and I thought we're still talking youth,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
children, young people, so like the inter-school football, especially at the inter-call level, what they call premiership now, that's where it reaches, professional. That there's so much emphasis on winning that it's gone crazy, actually. So it's not even just about helping the young fellas and the girls who are involved in that sport, that the schools have just lost focus to a large extent. Not all of them, because even some of the top performing schools are still invested in the young people. But sadly, they are
Is it about
being
winning
abused.
a trophy? Yeah.
I mean, if consider that there are some school teams, and you know about it, George, and we're not going to call names, but there are some school teams that play in that Premier Division that the teachers in the school do not know who the athletes are.
Yes, yes.
There are some of them who are, what was the date today? We're in October, middle of October. There are some students who are now joining the team in the middle of the season, coming in from somewhere, and usually far away. And so schools have not, to a large extent, and this is from my own deep understanding, because I've been visiting schools doing some other work. Schools are so committed to winning and focused on winning that they forget that the best way to win, and to win consistently in a way that's positive, is to develop your athletes from one. I don't have a problem with the transfer issue, because there are some schools that are not actively involved in some sports, and so a student wants an opportunity. I don't have a problem with that. But that's not the reality. The reality is that we just transferring students into a team, into a school, to get them to play football, and then we discard them. And sadly,
after the
one or two of
finishes,
them may, depending on the school and the experience and the support, one or two of them may even get a scholarship opportunity. Is good. But it's not the majority. And in fact, we do know of many of them who slip through the cracks.
So true.
And it's a disservice to young people. It's a form of abuse in some ways, that we're using these young people to give the school a name. And I honestly think it's something that needs to be addressed. So sorry, I went off a little bit on that.
Hold the thought for 1 minute. We need to take a break.
Cool.
Viewers, we'll be right back. You're viewing Scoreboard here on ACTN. Stay tuned. We'll be coming back.
As a group, we will seek to learn and understand what futsal really is, what it's about. Is your understanding the same as perhaps our understanding and the broader game as a whole? But importantly, we will also consider how futsal is a strategic development tool for the development of young football players.
Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back to Scoreboard here on ACTN. Mark, continue.
Yeah, so we were talking, you had asked me about the issue with what we're focusing on, and we were just going back to say, yes, so some coaches definitely are committed to the total welfare of their athletes, and this, not only that they do not support those violent behaviors, they actually give guidance. But I was saying that at the competitive level, particularly at that premiership level of sport in the country, at schoolboy sport we're talking about, I think we're not focused enough on it, and there's so much emphasis on winning, and we think that the best way for us to win is to just develop the skills and the tactics. That's important, but there are other dimensions, and we have a responsibility when you're working with young people in sport or in any sector. We have a responsibility as coaches and physical education teachers and whoever, faith-based volunteers, etc. We have a responsibility to those young people that should include, yes, quality sport experience. I want them to learn those skills to be the best dribblers, passers, shooters at the ball, whatever. I want them to learn those skills and to do it well. That's a commitment we should have. So we don't want a kind of haphazard coaching experience. They come there and they're not really focused on this. I want that. I want them to have a really rich social experience as well, so that they must be a team and they must learn how to interact with each other and enjoy the opportunity. I want them to have a good intellectual experience too. I want them to have a good emotional experience. And so the responsibility of the coach is not just the sports skills. It's a total
total package.
The total package. And I think, yeah, unfortunately, most of the coaching education courses focus so heavily on skill development and tactics and fitness and so on, and not enough on that social and emotional development of young people. Really important part. And it starts to affect teams as well too, you know, in the long run. I mean, even at the highest level, the teams that do well at EPL and La Liga and those Premier Leagues are the teams that have coaches that invested not only in the performance on the field, but in the team as a unit and how they interact. And as long as things when things start to happen in the back rooms, as they say, you see it on the field. You see it on the field. I've seen it with my TI as a semi-fan of Tottenham Hotspurs. I've seen them collapse because of what's happening behind the scenes more than what's happening on the field, you know. And that's the reality of sport. So yeah, we have a commitment, but certainly at the level of youth, we must ensure that all of the young people playing sport benefit from quality education.
How do we start?
Oh, how do we start? Well, again, remember, this is already happening. So there are some schools and organizations who are committed to real development. That they have their little academies running so that, and for me at Presentation College, I know that the past students would have had for some years. Brian Lewis was actually, Brian Williams was actually coaching in that little academy that they ran for years. That academy would have included children who were not from Presentation College, but a lot of Form 1s and the younger boys, and they would come out during the holidays and then on weekends and stuff as part of an academy that focused on total development. It was quality football skills, and if you know Brian is probably one of our top youth development coaches, because he understands quality coaching in terms of skill development, but he also understands
he's very strict on discipline too.
Exactly, and it's not just about strict; it's about ensuring that that he facilitates that total development of the young person, that they're responsible and that they, and discipline and all of that. And so some schools are committed to that, and I know, and I'm just saying prayers because as an alumni, I know as a member of the alumni, I know of their commitment. I know that there are teachers who are supporting one who is committed to doing lunchtime lessons with the entire team, mathematics lessons with the entire team. So there is a commitment at the college there for that type of all-round development. And there are other schools that are doing that as well. I think so we shouldn't say where we start, because schools know what they have to do. They know what they have to do. So it's really just a matter of people being responsible and taking responsibility for what students come to school for. Primarily is education. The sport experience is a fantastic part of that, but it should not be one at the expense of the other. We should not be only in classroom at the expense of not enjoying sport and music and arts and all of that. And similarly, we shouldn't be focused only on the sport experience at the expense of the detriment of your education.
Because at the end of your sporting career, there's life after.
Absolutely.
Right? So what do you do after that?
And remember, only a few of the athletes will move on to that pathway in terms of professional sport.
So, yes.
It's not the majority.
The greater majority end up not really doing that.
Yeah.
So how is the book being marketed, in the sense of you go to schools, do you promote it at the schools, and how is the book doing presently?
To be honest with you, since we launched, we had a nice little book launch. So UE launched the book and for us, which was really nice. And it's being sold on Amazon, and so it's online. You can get both the Kindle version as well as a hard copy. And it's being sold in the Nigel Can stores locally. Boy, listen, I'm so busy with other work that I have not really focused a lot on promoting the book. But I've had a couple of good opportunities, including one in New York at the Beyond Sport conference to have an opportunity to speak about it.
So it's outside the book?
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's available online. To be honest with you, it's not my main focus right now. It's there, it's available, and and it sells. But you know, the reality is that authors don't make money off of selling books so much. But what this has done I think is more important than book sales is captured some knowledge and experiences.
Yeah, and that's more important than the dollars.
And as an organization that we wanted to share for some time now, because we would have done workshops based on this model. And now it's there so that we, you know, so anybody, and it's institutionalized. When you publish, it's institutionalized, so anybody can have a read, that they can use the information, they can learn from it, they could build on it as well, and improve those opportunities for developing leadership through sport. And as I said, it's a user-friendly material, so it's not written in academic language. It's targeting coaches, and we try to use simple narratives. And it identifies what we would refer to as leadership skills. So we've just focused on 10 leadership skills, and for each of those skills, we're saying those are learned behaviors. So we don't just automatically, because, you know, we have this way at, oh, he's a good leader and he has leadership capacity. I think everybody has leadership capacity. And so we also have a responsibility.
Well, it's how you harness it.
Exactly, and we have a responsibility. Same way we build the capacity of young people to read and to write and to do math, we should also be building the capacity to lead, because everybody has the responsibility to lead at some stage and phase and component of their life. It might be in their family setting, that they have to organize a family get-together. It might be in a club setting, you're organizing games and events or whatever it is. It might be in a faith-based setting. I mean, and it then could be in corporate settings, whatever it is. But it's a core skill, it's a life skill that everybody should have. And so the book breaks that down into 10 sub-skills, and it basically gives the reader some ideas about how you can develop those skills. So let's take one, the skill of delegation, for example, is a key leadership skill. As a leader, you can't do everything yourself. Exactly. Your responsibility is to get things done. And so one of the ways you do that is through delegation. But if we don't teach them the best ways to delegate, then they may not get the best out of it. So if I just say, okay, George, you're responsible for media, okay? And then on the day of the event, say, George, where the cameras? You say, oh, I was supposed to get camera people too. So come on, man. So we didn't have a clear, you and I didn't have a conversation to say exactly what you want me to do. So a key part of delegation, the skill of delegating, is making sure that the person that's taking on the responsibility clearly understands. And your role as the leader is not just to throw them in the bush and say, you see about that. Is to work with them. And in an ideal situation, we should actually say, George, what do you think you could do for this project? And you might say, well, I like media, so I'll handle that. So what are the key things you need to do? And you say, well, I'll make sure that we have at least 2 cameras and cameramen, and I'll organize somebody who is tech support and whatever. And I'll make sure that we have social media, whatever it is you do. And then I will say, okay, what about this? And you say, yeah. And I'll say, so what do you need from me, George? And he said, well, right now I don't need anything. And I say, okay, George, next week let's meet and you give me an update. Yeah, and so closer to the event. All of that, exactly. And so now, so that is delegating. And so in that skill, the leadership skill of delegating is not just saying, hey, George, you do that. It involves more. And so the book suggests to them some key, and it doesn't go into a whole bunch of detail, but it's more like principles. What would be some guiding principles of delegating? It also suggests how you do that. And it suggests that I don't have to tell you as a young person how to delegate. You already know. You don't even know you know. And so my responsibility is to draw that out of you. I say, George, as a young leader, if you had to delegate, what would be some key things that you'd do? And if we do that in small group settings and so on, but based on real activities, real experiences, real settings, and that's the sports setting. So we're not role playing. We're literally telling this group of young people, okay, guys, you have to run a tournament, and you have to have a closing ceremony at the end. And you have them planning it. And so in that planning experience, they have to use leadership skills. And so you infuse these principles in different ways.
Because ever so often you might go to a sporting tournament that's supposed to start at 7 or a given time, and maybe a half an hour after the starting time, they haven't started as yet because somebody forget to do this, or somebody they don't have the balls or something like that. So again, systems break down there now. So it's a longer delay.
Yeah, so that's basically
what the book entails. But you think that schools, likewise clubs, they should get a copy of this book?
Well, I think it is useful reading for anybody who's working with young people, particularly in the sports setting. So if you are working with young people as a club, a sports club in any sport, or if it's just a youth group, like police youth clubs, for example, that you may be using sport. And as I said, those are things that we use the sport context, but music, I see you all have music as part of your ministry here, right? But it can easily fit into that context as well, that if you organize in a concert, for example, there's an opportunity for young people to take on leadership roles. And there's a part of the whole process too. And one of the challenges that we have with developing leadership among young people, we give them titles, not roles. And so we have them, we say, you are the captain. But all you getting to do is the toss. Oh, that makes me the leader. I mean, anybody could do the toss. A 2-year-old could do the toss. So we are saying that the leadership has to be authentic leadership as well, that we must be willing to give the young people the opportunity to make decisions. And that's the big part. That's the big part there that we are often afraid to do. So, you know, we think that if we tell them they have to design the competition, they mightn't do it the right way. No, but we're giving them guidance. But let them do it. And the book also goes through that transition